to add, Barbara?
I'm just delighted to be in this company and to finally get here. I've been
I
wanting
know,
to
my gosh.
come and visit
We've
here for
been waiting,
some time.
Barbara.
And then I got here early and I said, man, the right place, maybe let's go to the other building. But I said, well, I have a parking space. I'm gonna just stay, wait it out. But it is so wonderful to be invited, to be a part of your community, and just excited to come, to learn, to know, to grow together. And thank you for taking the time to join me as we commemorate and celebrate just Kwanzaa. A little different, but I think it's going to be a great learning experience for all of us.
Jim is going to start us off with some music.
Yeah, and we'll sing a song.
Yeah,
We'll
that'd be great.
do a little singing and dancing and
A true Renaissance man. Zoom tech
Yes.
and
Zoom
computer.
tech and guitar. Right? It's important to be able to do both.
Reverend Barbara,
Barbara, yes.
that I can spell.
All right.
So I really doesn't like cold weather. So I think we'll sing this one because this is a song that's associated with Louis Armstrong. And Louis Armstrong grew up in a family of Jews, so it's a nice way to bring all the communities together. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield
Down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield. Down by the riverside, I'm gonna study war no more. I ain't 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 gonna study war no more.
I'm gonna lay down my heavy load
Down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, I'm gonna lay down my heavy load. Down by the riverside and study war no more. I ain't gonna 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 study war no more.
I'm gonna shake hands around the world.
Down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, I'm gonna shake hands around the world. Down by the riverside, I'm gonna study war no more. I ain't 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 gonna
never knew that was written by Louis Armstrong.
No, it wasn't written by him, it's
Song.
just associated.
So
In my mind,
In
it's
his mind.
associated with him.
In your mind.
No, I think that's a Negro
Spiritual,
spiritual
yes, it is.
from way back when.
Okay.
So
It
there's no one in particular wrote it,
No,
so yeah.
no,
Gotcha.
no,
Yeah.
no rights on those. Not yet,
Yeah, my
anyway.
dad used to sing that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It was ukulele.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Wait, did you come back? And we'll get started.
I don't know if there are more songs.
There's no song, so today, I think with Kwanzaa, this is the second day of Kwanzaa. It's December 27th. So as you know, Kwanzaa has 7 days and 7 principles, which maybe I should just wait for Jim to come back or. do you
I'll
want
go
to get
check.
started? Don't rush, I just want to make sure, but we'll be sharing.
Maybe we can
and learning
start a little
together.
bit
We can
now
start a little
and
bit, yeah.
We can
Yeah.
add in when he gets
That's
back
great,
if needed. Can everyone hear Reverend Barbara? Okay.
You can?
A
A little bit,
bit.
I'll use my preaching voice. How's that? The Reverend Barbara's voice. I do speak softly, but when I get excited, my voice definitely rises. So thank you. Thank you for joining in that Negro spiritual. I ain't gonna study war no more. What a wonderful timing. What a wonderful song to sing and to really feast upon, and saying that wouldn't it be wonderful to not have to study wars anymore and the burdens that we carry to release them. So in this season of celebrating Kwanzaa, I think it's very fitting. It speaks to some of the struggles that the people of color still experiencing today, and we all still experiencing wars and triumphs, but burdens that wear us down. But I think when we come together in this space, in this room, and to be able to hold hands together and to walk together and to really lift each other's burden, which gives us a sense of community and hope for times such as these. Am I right? Okay. All right.
And Rabbi Jim, did you have other songs that
Did
you
you wanna
wanted to
sing?
start us off with, or? was that
No, I
the-
think we should
Great.
Started. Okay.
get started. We can sing maybe another spiritual type of song at the end.
Okay, that
great.
sounds great. That's great. Good. So, good afternoon again and welcome. I'm Barbara. I don't think we met. You are, is it
Millicent.
Millicent? Nice to meet you. Thank you. So I'm excited to be here in Brookline and with you and have an opportunity to share in this Kwanzaa celebration what the meaning of Kwanzaa really is. As you know, the Kwanzaa is a holiday that's an African-American holiday that was built in early 1960s, I would say, the early 1960s. And if you know and lived in the state, in this country, you can see some of the challenges that many people of color have been struggling and still are struggling with today. So it reminds me of just my Southern upbringing in the South and the different movements that were going on as we experienced during this transition, this pandemic of racism and unjust in America. We can definitely connect with the experience there, not so far removed from today. So songs like I Want to Lay Down My Burden, Down by the Riverside, many artists like Curtis Mayfield and so many others, they were all songs Stevie wanted to really help us to really commune together. And the Black church was very involved, I would say, as well as an educational institution in letting others know what this struggle was all about. So Kwanzaa is a holiday that was formed to really help us to really connect as a people of color, people who are descendants of Africa. And there, it is, the word Kwanzaa means the first fruits. So first fruits, and we think of first fruits. I think Jim and I was speaking just briefly on the phone a few days ago about first fruits, and there's harvesting, which time, I think it's Jewish celebration that takes place in, I believe, April, all right? So there is such a connection. And when I look at the menorah, and as you think about the lighting of candles, there's so much in terms of telling stories, reminding us as a people from whence we have come and where we're going. So I want to start first by talking a little about what we have here in this table space. So it'll be sort of a learning experience. So during the, again, as I said, in 1960, the first Black freedom movement was identified in Los Angeles, California, known as Kwanzaa. The Black holiday known as Kwanzaa was created to represent a mold of after the West African Harvest Festival, using African Swahili words and phrases. I don't know Swahili well, but I will share. So today I think what I'll do is basically talk about it in the English word so that you can grasp hold and understand what each of the candles represent and mean. So there are 7 candles beginning, and they're lit beginning December 26th and goes through January 1st. when you greet each other during the season of Kwanzaa celebration, the word is harambe, 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 which means what's the news? And you would respond, ujama, for today. And each day you would name each candle. So if we were to light the candles, today will be representing the second candle. The candles are red, black, and green. So the red candles represent the blood that was shared, the struggle, the hardship, the pain, the suffering. And the black represent the people of color globally, whether you're in Africa, the United States, the Caribbean, all representing the people of color. And then green is the promise of hope, the harvest, the future, what the promise is. And it's basically a family gathering where people will come together and give gifts to the children, celebrating who they are. So the first thing I want to share is just point out some of the items that we have here. So the Kenora, which is the candle holder that's here, which represent the Black people connected in the African continent. And then you have what we call the 7 candles. Again, we talked about the red, 3 red candles reflecting the blood and the struggles. And then the green candle, again, representing growth and harvest and the promise of hope. And then the black candle, again, representing people of color. Crops that represent the African harvest celebration. So we look at the crops, the corn, which we definitely would like to just talk about a little bit. So during this time, each ear of corn represents a child. So if you did not have a child, you still shared that ear of corn. So that was the corn was to represent children and the promise that parents would have with their children. Okay. The mat represents, which we have here, the tradition and history of from whence we have come. Then you have the unity cup representing togetherness, both the principles and the practices that are taught to our children from generation to generation to come. And then you have gifts. If there were a Kwanzaa table, so we would have wrapped gifts. Usually when I wrap them, we wrapped in brown paper bags. So the old brown paper with different penta cloth will be wrapped around it. So if you wanted to give a gift to your child, so the children have opportunity. Sometimes they're books, there are not a lot of toys, because Kwanzaa, we really wanted to make sure that we would get away from the traditional idea of Christmas with gifting, you know, not the spiritual part, but the myth of what Christmas is, with the Santa Claus. So this is what Kwanzaa represents, something more meaningful about our values and the principles. So that's why we do that. Then you also have the unity cup, as I said, representing togetherness, both the principles and the practices that we have. Then the gifts we just finished talking about, and then the flag. If there was a flag, it would be a red, black, and green flag, which represent Black people around the world, the struggle for freedom and a prosperous future. And then if there was a meal celebration, we'll have to join thank you, Jim, for sharing that. But if there was a meal, some of the wonderful things you would have would be a great African jumbo rice dish, and there would be vegetables. One will be collard greens that will be used at the time. There will be beans and stews and various dishes that we would feast upon. Everything that naturally comes from the earth. And that will be considered our feast or our community meal. And then you would have a reading, which I will share a story. It was a time of sharing stories and folk tales. So I will do that just so you get an idea of what this time would be like. So the first reading that I'm going to share is called The People Could Fly, the book that maybe many of you may be familiar with. So I'm just going to I will share it and make copies if you want it, but I'm going to just share a highlight for you, just a little brief summary of this story, so that we will be able to pass this on. So if our children were here, we would tell this folk tale. It's called The People Could Fly summary. Before being captured into slavery, many African Americans could fly. At some point, however, they lost their wings and forgot about their secret power. The story opens with a young woman named Sarah. Sarah is working in the fields with her baby on her back, exhausted and emotionally beaten down. Her child starts to cry, drawing the attention of the cruel overseer and the merciless driver. The driver whips Sarah, and he also whips the child until they both collapse. Just as all hope seemed lost, a man named Toby appears and rekindles Sarah's flying powers. And with that, they're gone, soaring away in the clouds like Superwoman and a super baby, a crime-fighting team that we just make up and now need to see turned into reality. The next day, people are collapsing left and right due to the heat of the field, but luckily Toby whispers the magic words to each one of them, just in the nick of time, and they fly away too. When the guys finally wise up to what was going on, Toby shouts at this few remaining struggles and flies away himself. Sadly, there are a bunch of slaves without the ability to fly left behind. Although they've had to suffer through slavery, which many African Americans have done, for some long time longer, they too will ultimately become free. And when they do, the story of people who could fly will become one of their all-time favorite. They say that the children of the ones who could not fly told their story. And now I have told this story and imparting it to you. And again, if you like a copy of that, we
Great, yeah.
make copies of the original. It's a little lengthy and a little graphic, but I think
Right.
it'll be something to share.
Great.
Just take a look now and just look at the 7 principles so that we will be able to, we were lighting our candles. So the first principle of December 26th, the red candle, represent unity. We can all talk about unity, the importance to strive for and maintain unity in our family, in our community, in our nation, and in our race. The second candle, which will be today, the 27th, self-determination, to create, to name and define our lives for ourselves, instead of allowing it to be defined by those of us, done for us by others. So important. December 28th, collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain a community while working with others to solve our problems. And we think about the various organizations and support systems that we have in order for us to encourage, whether it's a mentoring program, we're just really making sure that we're sending a message to our children and family members, the importance of being a collective work and being responsible. And then the 29th of December, the word will be corporate, the candle will be corporate economics, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses and profit from them together. Now I think about very often, many, many years ago, if you think about the 60s, even the 40s, African Americans owned their own shops, the vegetable market, the shoemakers, laundry businesses. That was a business that we owned. Things have changed, but there still are independently owned Black businesses. So during this time of year, we really encourage you to support our own. And very often we say, there was that one day of the year, you'll say, this is a day we're not going to shop online, we're going to really support our own. And that's another, I think, very important part of keeping the African American community economically sound. And then this December 30 would be purpose, which is near purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community, creating jobs, training programs, trying to build a community and make it a sound place. And then December 31st, creativity, to leave our community more beneficial and beautiful than we inherited it. Very, very important to pass on that which we have had from generation to generation to come. So these are all gifts and promises to our children. And then January 1st, which is Imani, which represents faith, to believe in our people, teachers and leaders, and the virtue and victory of our struggle. So I'd love to just share with you one other reading, which connects and resonates very much with me. I don't know if you're familiar with what's known as the history of watch night service. Anyone familiar with that? Let me tell you a little bit. I think will be a great teachable moment for us. Watch night service is a tradition in the African American church community. On watch night, which is usually on December 31st, right before the new year comes in, there's a service gathering of the faithful members of various churches for that New Year's Eve service. It is a tradition in the African American church, which dates back to the Civil War. The service usually begins around 9 and 10 p.m. and ends shortly after midnight with the entrance of the new year. There is both a cultural and religious significance for this New Year's service in the African American congregation. The watch night service can be traced back to the gathering on December 31st, 1862, also known as Freedom Eve. On that night, Blacks will gather together in churches, private homes all across the nation, anxiously awaiting for President Abraham Lincoln's executive order known as the Emancipation Proclamation actually to become law. Then at the stroke of midnight on January 1st, 1863, and according to Lincoln's promise, all slaves in the Confederate States were legally free. When the news was received, there were prayers and shouts and songs of joy as people fell to their knees and thanked God. Since then, African Americans have gathered in their churches annually on New Year's Eve, praising God for bringing us safely through another year. It's been 159 years since the first Freedom's Eve, but tradition still brings us together, and we will be gathering, many of us in the African American churches and congregations throughout the city, throughout the country, gathering every night, on December 31st to celebrate how we got over. So I just wanted to share that, which is a very meaningful part of what is being taught around Kwanzaa. So very often we think of Kwanzaa, you see the candle and the lighting, the unity, but it goes beyond. It's really a living experience, and I wanted to just share that with you. Are there any other questions that you might have?
Yeah, so we can open the floor.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry we don't have a microphone. So I think what
and I
we will
hope that you can hear
do
me. Mhm.
is that I will be the microphone.
Okay.
So if you want to make a comment or ask a question, wave your hand or just let me know so I can come over closer to you. And if you speak softly, then I will be able to, I'll be the, in Judaism, there was a tradition of the Targaman, is that what it was? Something like this? And it was the person would be giving the lesson, and then the Targaman would be next to him, making a very loud noise so everyone in the hall could hear it. So
Yeah.
I have a loud voice, so
Okay.
that'll be me. All right, go ahead. Maybe just come closer to you.
Who's the person who actually started Kwanzaa?
The name is,
So just in
okay.
case you didn't hear,
okay,
we're asking who is the person who started Kwanzaa and got this thing going?
so the name is, the American name would be Ronald Mackenzie Everett. He was a professor of African studies, I believe in California. He was an activist around this, during that period of time, and it was in the 60s that he actually started. And he has he took on a Swahili name, I believe, which is Mulana Karinga. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
What was the last name? Ronald Mackenzie, what?
Everett, Evertt. But his Swahili name is Karenga. Karenga. Ga. G as in George A.
Oh,
And the first
okay.
name is Maulana. Mulana.
Maybe you want to say? No.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question or a comment or a thought? Yeah, please.
It sounds to me as though the holiday, the observance is more culturally based than, say, religiously based.
Yes. Yes, it is culturally based. Mostly. Yeah. And it also speaks to, I think, the struggle. We recall some of the challenges that people of color have definitely, gone through here in the States, in this country, and globally, still are going through and experiencing. So it's a time of really reflecting. And I think even with the old wise, or with their stories that we would tell to remind of, it sounds very painful, but the peoples could fly just to show that, being broken from flying, when you're in prison, you can move from one place to another country, and then letting go of your heritage and who you are as a people. So how that impacts you. So we want to keep telling the stories that the children will be able to grasp and understand as well.
That's a beautiful picture. divine picture
Mhm.
flying.
Yes, fine. Yeah.
In case you didn't
It
hear, it,
represents-
it's a beautiful picture,
Picture.
she said,
Yeah.
in the mind of a flying, of a person flying to be
Yeah.
free, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Yeah.
Yes. you-
Oh, sorry. The whole idea of the telling of the stories really kind of goes back through the elders.
Do the
in
elders,
centuries
yes.
of Maintaining that
And passing
tradition
on,
of
absolutely.
storytelling
Mm-hmm.
and passing it
And
on.
passing on, absolutely. Definitely.
Did everyone hear what? Okay, okay.
Sorry about that.
There are some
Um,
notes.
No, okay, so that, just stating that, the importance of telling stories and bringing back the traditions of the elders and making sure that they get passed down through the generations.
Are there books now that are with this, like the stories that are told, are they're individual stories?
They're
Like your
Folk tales.
Familial as well as.
They're-
Mostly folk tales.
mostly folk tales, and
Okay.
then you have your own testimonies. I think very often in our church, when you do a program, and I can share, there will be an elder who will lead us
Sure.
and sort of giving a testimony, a sort of exchange. And so that the children, we try to make it in a way that the children will be able to grasp hold
Can
of it.
relate,
Yeah,
that's
can
great.
relate to it.
Are there children's books that are like?
There are
I'm
children's
sure
books
there
that I'm
are.
going-
That's a
absolutely, yeah.
children's book, yeah. Hmm.
I'd be curious, Reverend Barbara, to hear more about your own experience with Kwanzaa when you started celebrating it. If there's anything you do at home, if how much of your family comes, anything you have to share, if you'd be willing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think the meal is something that, there are various dishes and traditional dishes that we try to hold on to. And one might be, there's always like something from the ground. So you would think of like the sweet potato or the greens that you would make. And just that, which not just on at Kwanzaa time, but even through, we've held on it through from generation to recipes that you pass on down. So the food is very a way of communing and sharing. And I think I love the idea of what the ear of corn represents our children and really telling the story, making sure. So if you don't have children, it's your commitment to tell someone else in the community. So the community will be your children. Sometimes I think we miss all of that with you as well. Any questions? I don't, okay.
How long have you been celebrating Kwanzaa in your area church, if you had your pastor
So-
in a church or in your family at home?
I would say probably as long as I can remember, probably say maybe the 70s, as a college student and then being married and my husband. Our first church was in the South Bronx, the Hunts Point area of the South Bronx. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Jonathan Kozo wrote a book called Amazing Grace. And he spent a summer with my husband and I in the South Bronx when he was doing that book. And I actually had a sermon in there called, has a sermon called A Flight,
Oh, I know.
From a Fight to a Flight. And it has to do about the movement and how we struggle. And in the South Bronx, it was really a drug-infested war zone. But we tried to really make sure that we would share Kwanzaa because it was a way of really embodying the community and teaching our children there's hope in life. And some of the traditions that very often there are families who don't necessarily have as families die out and their stories not been told, but the passing on. I feel it was a responsibility again of the church as a religious organization, but culturally to own, giving back to the community and making sure that families knew what some of the struggles were all about. Yes.
Followers of Kwanzaa had to give up a husband to Christianity.
To celebrate Kwanzaa, do you have to give up other religions?
No,
Like,
Kwanzaa can be celebrated by all. Muslims, Jews have a connection. I mean, it's about giving and passing on. And Christians, absolutely, yeah, it's not giving up, absolutely not.
Well, it made me think that because it's a celebratory time from the day after Christmas to the new year. It seems like we should maybe, as a country, make that more of a thing that we do.
Yeah, I think this is a start as we're
Yeah.
sharing and spreading. This is the way we make it. And I think that sometimes not to be politically correct, but sometimes society has a way of keeping us from empowering each other.
Oh, no.
So I think coming together and understanding, and some may have thought it was a separate, is not separate from Christianity. It is very much
Right.
a part of what is expected of most faith traditions, I would think, that you would tell your story. That's a part, I'm sure, of the Jewish tradition as well. You tell the story, and that's how I feel that we connect so much, even from, the creation of this condo, of the holder. It was just, could not be found, but was created because, Jim, as you shared in that story, which was really wonderful to see.
Great story. Yeah.
A great story. And I've always connected, and I think about, well, there are different things that connect us more so than separate us. It's just a matter of sharing. So I welcome
Right.
you to Great
And
Question.
just to be clear about the story that I shared with Reverend Barbara and with Julia, is that the story is that Ron Karinga, when he was creating Kwanzaa, wanted to have a kinara,
Yes,
but couldn't
find
find a
one.
seven branch candelabra. So he went and he bought a Hanukkah with 9 branches and
Broke
took
it
off 2 of
In order to
them.
make-
And so there's a real connection
Yeah.
between Hanukkah and when I was just reading today that among Jews of color, there's a tradition of having Kwanzaa. And so that celebrating the two a little bit together. Go ahead, Minnie.
I was
The Kwanzaa celebration I went to with a friend, I could have sworn it was my grandmother.
So
Because it was the same kind of eat
story.
something, you'll feel better. Eat, and it was wonderful to feel that connection.
Yeah, so what Minnie said is that when Minnie went to
her grandmother.
a Kwanzaa celebration, she felt like she was going to her grandmother's Hanukkah celebration, because it was all about, let's tell this story and eat some chicken soup because you'll feel better.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't chicken soup, maybe it was, maybe it was,
Chicken soup for the soul.
chicken, exactly. Go ahead.
I was like, it's really nice to see a celebration that's spiritual,
Mhm.
and encompassing, people and the attributes that each candle has.
Yes.
It doesn't have a deity involved,
Right.
that
Yeah.
it really is universal and open to anyone.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Melissa.
What about split tea soup for the soul with ham and carrots?
Oh my.
Yes. If you eat ham, I think that split pea and ham
You
soup for
wanna
the
write
soul
that?
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I was just,
Go ahead.
what you were sharing before, I was just thinking about Kwanzaa, how it is spiritual and has this cultural element.
Mhm.
And is the story really about African Americans or people who have experienced slavery and what it means to be here now? And there are a lot of Jews of color, and
Yes.
Rabbi Jim mentioned that. And so I imagine that there are a lot of Jews of color who light Kwanzaa candles as well as Hanukkah candles.
I would think so, yeah.
And I was curious too, if there's a specific time of day that you light the candles generally. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know if that, I never thought about that. We usually with ceremony and stuff, it's in the evening around the dinner time, because all
The
to do with
food.
with the meal, but yeah. Good point. I'll find out. Any other questions?
Any other, yeah, please.
Go ahead.
Do you let the first candle totally burn out on the first night? Or on the second night, do you relight the first one and the second one?
It sort of moves on. Yeah, we continue to go through. So some stay a little longer than the others.
If it burns down, it burns down. Good.
Well, yeah, when you end the night.
Yeah, that was actually my
That's-
question. Is it
that's-
cumulative, meaning by the 7th night, do you have all 7?
You have
Burning?
all, yeah,
Wow, okay,
all
cool.
7 burn by the last one. That's how we do it. for
Yeah.
American, yeah.
And well, just like in Judaism, right, I'm sure that
Yeah.
every family has their own
Oh,
traditions,
sure.
and the way we do it is the right way, right? And the way they do it across the street is the wrong way. Right? So
Oh, some people do it because it's easier.
there's that also.
Mhm. I'm just curious, how many, I mean, we shared that the folk story, but I'm just curious about the watch night service. Have you heard of that?
I've never heard that.
You've never heard of
And
it?
and I don't know, I have such respect for the Black church
Mhm.
in this country, and I think, and because musically, to
music.
me, Black music is American music fundamentally,
Mhm.
first and foremost. And yeah, I never
You ever
heard
heard of
that.
it?
I have been, yeah. No.
I didn't
Watch
get the
night.
question.
The watch night service, I read what that meant, on the 31st of December, Christmas, right before the eve of the new year, we joined together and most of our churches. So if you were to go into any African-American church, there in any city, there will be a gathering
You would
of
know- Wow.
people, and they will be singing. And my church is called Charles Street Amy Church. It's probably one of the about 200 plus years old, one of the oldest churches here in the Boston area, and it's in Roxbury. Charles Street, historic Charles Street Amy Church is on Warren Street in Roxbury.
Okay.
Um,
I've been to Love Tabernacle.
70, yeah, okay, love, yeah, I've heard it, I think I know, yeah. It was, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't.
Okay, no, go ahead.
You finished.
I want to hear from you.
Okay. Speaking for Negro spirituals, and some people don't like to use the word Negro,
Mhm.
but our church has started a Negro spiritual royalty problem. Payment,
Mhm.
because for a lot of church music, when it's performed, you pay royalties. to the
Yes.
composer and everything. But the Negro spirituals have been around so long.
Yes.
And the people who initially wrote them, the
Mhm.
enslaved people, of course, they're not gonna get any
Right.
benefit out of it,
So it's
except
for
the
the next-
spiritual part.
Mhm.
So we started a program partnering with an African American music school
Mhm.
in, I think it's Mattapan.
No.
And every time we sing a Negro spiritual and you pass the plate, that plate goes to the school.
Yeah.
The money from there,
Right.
and it's starting to spread to some other churches,
yes.
which I think is really nice.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Jim and I had a conversation about that. That church happens to be Charles Street Amy Church, which is our church. My daughter is the director of the program called the Hamilton Garrett Music and Arts
That's
Academy.
cool.
And it's all about preserving the
Oh, that's great.
spirituals, and
Yeah.
really was moved by the partnership. And they recently just had you can Google it, they just had their Christmas concert. And
Well, see, I would love
For
it.
those
Maybe
of you, I was gonna say, who don't know, this church is right here in Brookline.
Yeah,
It's
the
corner
parish,
of
yeah.
United Parish.
Right. I
And,
know, Pastor French, yeah.
and it was our music director.
Yes, Susan, I believe, Susan,
yeah.
yes. Mhm.
No, I would love, like, maybe we can, this year or next year, maybe come to the service, or I would love to hear the children's music, like.
Well, I would love to
music
even
school,
bring
maybe
them.
they
We can
have-
arrange a
bring
concert
him.
here.
We can bring
Yeah.
a
I think
sign
that
as
would
well.
be
My sense is
That'd be
that
great.
kids who sing love to sing.
Right,
They're the ones
because
who
they're
really listen to them.
spiritual.
Yeah,
How can
they
you-
do.
I mean, how can spirituals move everybody, I
Yeah, of
think.
course.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something?
No, I was just responding to the watch night service.
Okay.
So you have heard of it or gone before?
Yeah,
I
lived in DC.
Okay,
So she lived in DC and remembers the watch night service
Yeah.
in DC.
yeah, I wanted to share that because I think it really
Yeah.
helps to resonate and let us know what is happening even now and how important somehow with all the celebration it get left out and people just not aware of it, but it's very, very much alive.
So I don't want to stop the conversation, but I
But
do
we
want to
can
make sure
share,
that, you know, 'cause
absolutely.
food is such an important
Yes.
part.
The
Reverend
celebration.
Barbara said stuff from the earth, so I brought, and then also I got inspired by the Kwanzaa cup. So
Oh, yeah.
I got,
And
I
chocolate.
got gelt as well. So it's
Yeah.
it's not Hanukkah gelt, it's Kwanzaa gelt.
So please,
Oh, that's fun.
thank you, yes.
Oh, my God.
Good. Oh, thank you. Well, it's a nice connection, how small our world is, our community is so small, and it's about learning and sharing, so thank you for allowing me. And what you're doing at your church as well, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's, and I'd like to see just
Would you like
a
some
lot, like,
chocolate too?
I mean, I know we have probably in Boston, and I
It's
would,
milk
know,
chocolate, is that
Music
okay?
Day,
Mhm.
have bringing
Yeah,
everybody
milk chocolate.
together to
That's all.
sing spiritual.
Did you say that you've gone to Holy Tabernacle?
Oh, I went
Love
there
Tabernacle.
once with an
Okay,
old
yeah.
boyfriend, we watched the service, but I don't know, I was singing in a chorus, I mean, I just love gospel music, you as a choir, I mean, don't
No,
have
tell me
many-
story.
You
many
take more than one. you don't have
chances
to-
to sing it,
you don't have
right?
to-
Well, we love
So I would love to. I don't know.
We had a woman in our church by the name of Ruth Hamilton, who the program is named after, sang spiritually. She was a cantor in many of the Jewish synagogues. So we're, I don't know if you know that name, but she will be well, she's been around, and I met her about 27 years ago. And my daughter was 3 years old,
Wow.
sitting in the pew, And Ruth Hamilton would get up and sing. This gray-haired woman with the afro would sing this with the song called "Hold On." And I remember my daughter was very little, and this was she to this day still remembers at 3 years old.
Yeah.
She remembers that voice of Ruth Hamilton singing "Hold On." So
Wow.
again, she was a cantor for many.
Yeah, yeah, no,
of the
I mean,
Jewish
I went to
synagogue,
Symphony
yeah.
Hall has the gospel
Yeah.
night or whatever it is. And there's-
And go ahead.
Another little story for you.
Sure.
Nico spirituals.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in Boston and went to school in Boston.
Mhm.
And back in the early 60s, the schools in Jamaica Plain was one part of the city that was very integrated.
Mhm.
And my first Negro spiritual that I learned was Swing Low, Sweet Chariot in my 8th grade music class at the
Wow.
Mary Curley School.
At the Curley School.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very nice.
Oh, I went to the Mary Curry.
You went to the
School.
Oh, and JP, that's still there,
JP.
right? Yeah. My son-in-law actually teaches there now. Good, small, very small,
But
yeah.
it's looking back on the
Those-
history that,
Mhm.
yeah, we learned that
We
in
learned.
school.
We have so much more that connects us than separates us
Maybe
when we
me and her
teach.
went to school at the same year.
Maybe. How about that? How about that?
Okay.
Yeah,
We stayed there for a year or
Yeah.
two.
so who knows what this will lead us, Jim? We can.
Well,
do so
there's
much
all
more.
kinds of, all kinds of
I
collaboration.
think there's so much that,
I love collaboration.
I know, or let's start singing in the parks.
There we go.
I mean, this town. it's like-
music, I think is is a communal, is a common language for all of us.
Exactly.
We can feel it, we can express
Right.
it. And I don't know if you know, Lift Every Voice and Sing, no?
Which one?
Lift Every Voice. and
I
Sing?
don't know that one, but you can sing it anyway. Do you have the words?
I have a voice on my phone, if you know it, you can play along.
I
with
don't
it.
know, but I can find
So
it.
Lift Every Voice and Sing is this, Negro Spirit by James Weldon Johnson. I did not bring a copy of it. I would love to have been able to print the copy. I failed to do that, but I will just do
I
one
can
verse.
maybe pull it up,
Okay.
maybe.
You'll recognize the music.
Yeah, you'll recognize, and it also connects with, I think Kwanzaa, and we do sing that at our Kwanzaa closing.
It's called Raise Every Voice.
Lift every voice.
All right, let's see how I do here. It's gonna be-
Okay, here we go.
It'll be, I'll wing it. Remember,
Yeah. See that way?
I'm
I
gonna
just
wing
think
it.
it's a way of really connecting.
Is this a good key for you?
I'm not the best, I'm gonna say it, you're just gonna join with me.
Yeah,
You got the words in, right? Okay, go. You all set?
Oh, there you go.
And you could play this.
Wow.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. And this one we usually sing a little softer. Stormy the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not a weary plea, come to the place which were our fathers side. We have come over the way that where tears have been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. What of our wearies, what of our silent tears, thou who has brought us thus far on the way, thou who has by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy light, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you.
All right.
Thank you again. I hope.
Let's see, so we'll play one more
Awesome.
song, I think.
Is there a greeting or a, like Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, or what do people greet each other around the holidays?
Well, the greeting would be dancing, drums. If we have percussions, we play beats to remind us again from the land in which we've come, the music, the sound. So yeah, instruments, yeah.
Well, you mentioned something that people say to each other.
Haramba,
Greetings.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah. Harambe,
That's all right.
Harambe, yes, greeting, yeah, Harambe, yeah. Harambe.
All right, so everyone ready to sing a
Say
little
one
bit
last
more?
song? Okay.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. We shall all be free. We shall be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall be free someday. We are not afraid. We are not today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe. We're not afraid, we are not afraid someday.
Final verse. We are not alone.
We're not alone. We are not alone. We're not alone. We are not alone today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
All right, I want to,
Yeah.
At the temple next door,
Mm-hmm.
on the Saturday morning closest to Martin Luther
His
King
birthday.
Day,
Mm-hmm.
they sing this song at the end of the service.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
very nice.
This is an African-American song.
Well, actually, this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one because the words came from Reverend Charles Tindley,
Mm-hmm.
which is, and it's a poem called No More Auction Block for Me. And then Pete Seeger said it's a music. So this is one of those ones where it's a kind of a collaboration. As so much music, of course, is
Mhm.
all the
Yes.
time, just piling on of traditions one on top of the other. But this is an interesting one. But no, I'm glad to know that this is a big favorite of mine. So, but I want to just thank Reverend Barbara so much.
Thank
for
you
joining
for
us.
sharing
And-
this time.
And God willing, this will be, just the first
work on
in many more
Yes,
collaborations.
I think so.
Many
We'd
more
love to
ways of
bring,
thinking about ways that we can celebrate what
Thank
brings
you.
us together.
absolutely.
But again, thank you, and everyone grab a
Please
grab a-
share, so
grab a
thanks.
thing of
Wonderful.
trail mix,
Yeah.